Good morning and welcome to TakeASide. I'm Jacob Polachek, and with KU set to face off against Duke in the Champions Classic Tuesday, we'll be discussing a couple of topics involving KU basketball. We'll also be debating what sport deserves to be considered a Big Four sport. As always, be sure to follow along on sided.co and TakeASide. You can also find us on Twitter at TakeASideKU. For our first debate, I'm here with Max McElroy and Emma House, here to discuss KU's biggest threat in the Big 12 this season.
All right, so I believe it's going to be the same threat as last season. It's going to be Texas Tech. Chris Beard is their head coach, and he's produced two of their best seasons historically in the last 25 years. And I think a lot of people are kind of saying it's going to be a fluke, but I believe that he'll just be able to keep that going, and it's not going to be something that was just kind of like a shock to anyone. Yeah,
okay.
And I think he'll be able to keep that going. And they lost Jarrett Culver, Matt Mooney, and Tariq Owens last year. When they made their national championship run. But I think that they still will be just a force because, when you have a better team, you get better recruiting, you get better players, more people come to your school. And so I think it'll be Texas Tech again. What about you?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say Iowa State. I don't know. It's something about Iowa State. You keep coming back to them.
Every time.
Every time.
Everybody
asks me, what do you think is going to be the biggest threat? I'm going to say Iowa State this year. Just something about last year really, I don't want to say it was fun to watch them because they're one of our rivals, but it was kind of fun to watch them. We had a couple of close games with them, but I think they have a pretty solid team. They do have their senior forward, Michael Jacobson, coming back. He's pretty good, and they have their sophomore forward, Tyrese Halliburton. And, they are the defending Big 12 champions.
That is true. Iowa State, I feel like, is always in that tournament conversation.
Exactly.
Whenever the Big 12 tournament comes around, it's always Iowa State's the team. I think the one thing that prevents Iowa State from getting to that point is just that they have a very young team. And so I don't know how much experience they have. You can say the same about Kansas, but we just have a lot of experienced players. A lot of freshmen who have looked good in the scrimmages, but we still have just a lot more experience than this Iowa State team who I think will kind of struggle to find their footing, at least till later in the season when it might just be too late. Whereas Texas Tech, yes, they lost some three key people to the NBA, but Davide Moretti is the player that I think is going to be on the Big 12 Player of the Year watch list. He's the first player in Big 12 history to shoot 50% from the floor, 50% from three, and 90% from the free throw line in one season. So
it's pretty impressive.
If he can keep that up, keep shooting the way he is, I think he could easily be in the conversation for Big 12 Player of the Year. And, you can have players who just carry teams and bring a leadership and bring a confidence that the team needs to carry them along in the playoffs. Jacob, what are your thoughts, man? What are you thinking? What Big 12 teams do you really think could be an issue?
Yeah, I think Iowa State and Texas Tech are both going to be tough. I also think Texas could be a real threat in the Big 12 this year. They're bringing back Matt Coleman. They got Jericho Sims. And then they also have a five-star recruit coming in Will Baker. He's a really good player, and I think that he'll make an immediate impact. Shaka Smart's a great coach, and I think that they're definitely a threat in the Big 12 this year.
Interesting. That's a very interesting take. I would have thought you would have said Baylor because Baylor is up there too. There's only two teams in the Big 12 that's ranked, or three teams in the Big 12 that's ranked. Sorry, Texas Tech, Baylor, and Kansas. Kansas being ranked the highest at 3, and then Baylor and Texas Tech I think are 18 and 13.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like the Big 12 is super competitive this year, but there's always going to be teams that come up and.
You say that, but I think that it's going to be a pretty good season. I think, especially, I don't know, just something about this season with KU basketball. We're really going for it this year, and I think that we're going to bring the heat, and I think other teams are going to bring the heat as well.
Yeah, I think that is kind of thing. It seems like the NCAA is against KU, and so I think the Big 12 might also just try and take them out, take them down. I don't know. I think KU last year having their season where they didn't win Big 12 regular season or the championship. I think they're kind of fiery this year. I don't know if there's a team that'll really challenge them, but I think Texas Tech is definitely a team to watch out for, just based off of what they've done their last 2 years.
Gotcha. So, on that note of KU bringing the fire, how do you think our team's looking this year so far? We've had 2 exhibition games against Fort Hays and Pittsburgh State. I was there at the Fort Hays game, and I don't know. they didn't look that
Yeah,
strong, but
definitely.
you were at the Pittsburgh State game. How'd that go for us?
Well, I think that first game was definitely just a rust buster of the season. We just kind of getting the kinks out, working everything out, playing against an actual team instead of a scrimmage with, KU, their own team. But that Pitt State game, we looked really good. We had some, Christian Brown was a stand-up for me just because of his ability to shoot the three. And his defense is also, he played really tight on their best player, their point guard, I don't remember his name. But, and then we have a really good front court, which is great to have because we didn't have that last year. And so, you have Doak, and Sylvia De Sosa also looked really good, but then you have Isaiah Moss, who transferred from Iowa, a senior transfer, and he made almost every shot that he took. So it was really good to see that, and a team that could shoot a lot of threes kind of took me back to the most recent past years of KU, which is really exciting to have that. What about you? What are you thinking?
I don't know. I think we've got a lot of really good players. Obviously, Devon Dotson, he was on the injured list for the Fort Hays game. So he didn't play, but he was there at the Pitt State game, and apparently he looked pretty good. I'm a little worried about Udoka Azubuike, just because
health-wise?
he is known to have a lot of injuries.
Sure.
Last year he was out for most of the season. He's a big guy, he's 7 foot. So I don't know, I feel like he's a little prone to injuries. I'm a little worried, but I think if he takes care of himself, he's going to be okay.
And that's why I think Texas Tech, it's weird to just say this, but they have a history of really healthy teams. What did it say? Oh, in the last 6 years, they've only had one player injured, which is
pretty
really
impressive.
strange. So, if Texas Tech stays healthy, they're always going to be dangerous, which is just a super interesting, any team stays healthy. If KU stays healthy, I think they could be great, but that Texas Tech team always worries me, especially of recent years, and you got to watch out for them.
Speaking of the freshmen, what do we think of the freshmen so far that are coming in? I mean, Christian Brown obviously
Yeah,
is
I'm really excited.
looking pretty good.
And Jalen Wilson too. Shout out, happy birthday if you're watching. He's also playing really well. And then I'm just really excited to see what the freshmen can bring.
There was one, Tristan and Aruna from the Netherlands. He caught my eye too. He, just from the Fort Hays game, he looked a little strong. So, I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be a good year this year, good season.
Yeah. I'm really
Should be
excited.
exciting, and we're going to go for a national title.
Sure hope so. Hopefully no Big 12 teams will be able to come at us. But we're going to take a quick break. Thank you for joining us on TakeASide, and we'll be right back.
For students searching for a way to stay active in an outdoorsy way, the City of Lawrence has bike trails running in every direction, and with the new bike share program, we can stay in shape as we tour the sights of our beautiful city. Clinton Lake is only a short 30-minute bike ride away from Daisy Hill and has the most incredible sunset location in all of Lawrence. Walking campus may give you the KU calves, but biking can give you the KU thighs. Bike Lawrence today.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
So this past week, they came out that they were going to redshirt Mitch Lightfoot, and the rumors were true. They were kind of buzzed around it for a little bit, but what are your thoughts on the whole situation and him being a redshirt this year?
I have a couple of mixed feelings about it. I obviously love Mitch. I think he's great. I think he's a great player. And it is his senior year, so it's kind of sad, but, if it's in the best interest, we do have a lot of really good players this year. I don't know if we we always need Mitch, but I don't know if we necessarily need him as much as we did last year. We were relying a lot on him last year because of all the injuries that happened. But, maybe, if anybody gets injured this year, we can easily take the red shirt off, and he's back out on the court. But
well, that's why I think this whole situation is fine. If there is an injury, which we hope not, obviously,
fingers
that
crossed.
he can come in and they can just take his red shirt off and he'll be able to play. But I think the fact that we have two of our big centers back, Dioka Azubuike and Sylvia De Sosa, that when they're back, I think you don't really need Mitch Lightfoot when you can use him next year when the team will need probably more experience and just a leader on the team. And so I think that's kind of the direction that they wanted to go, was to save him so he can be a leader next year and really help the team with experience there. Because we don't necessarily need him this year per se. Again, if we have injuries, I think the only thing is that he drew a lot of fan support with the whole prison Mitch situation, and
he did get a lot of
he
support
got just a lot of fan support, and so I don't know if that'll affect the energy or the excitement for KU basketball with him not playing, because I went to a game last year and they announced everyone's name, everyone cheers loud, but then Mitch Lightfoot is just on another level of applause and cheers. And the Prison Mitch account is one of my favorite KU Twitter accounts that they have.
And they have the big cardboard cutouts of him at the field house.
So I think just for the idea of fans, I think it's just a bummer. But I think it's just important for next year to be able to have a leader who's experienced in that sense. Jacob, what do you take of this whole Mitch Lightfoot redshirting situation?
Yeah, I think that I'm kind of bummed, because I think that he was going to show a lot of progress this year and really have a breakout season. But at the same time, when you look at it in context with the guys that they have, with Doak, with Silvio De Souza, with David McCormack, it makes sense. And I think it will be good to have him sit out a year, help these guys, and then come in as a fifth-year senior and play pretty well. So I think it's a good move for KU basketball.
Yeah, definitely. And you make a really good point. He kind of last year he played really well, and you said breakout year, and I think that is a really strong argument that he could have made this year. We won't know, but that you do make kind of a good argument against it, is that he did play really well, and he always got the crowd into it, and he made big plays, a lot of blocks. I remember him last year, and so I think that could be a struggle this year, is maybe they just won't have, not having him might affect different things. And so that's just always a risk with it. But he seemed like to be a good sport about it. He tweeted out, "Well, I know it'll be hard to sit out of competition. I am eager to continue to provide leadership, support, and competition to the team in a number of ways. I love Kansas and its people more than most can understand." I'm not sure what that means, but I think just the way he's going about it is that he knows his role on the team is to be a leader. And so I think in whatever sense he can provide that for the team and for the city of Lawrence, KU basketball fans, I think he'll be able to take that on. And he clearly loves this place. And so I think whatever the situation was with him, I think they would have been fine. But it'll be different to see, not him on the court this year.
Not Mitch on the court. I think it's a really good point, though, that you bring up his whole leadership role. I think that him, mentoring and helping Jalen Wilson as the freshman forward, and just kind of helping all the other freshmen on the team get their footing. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how we progress as a team, not only this year, but next year as well, and see how much stronger we can come back, especially from this year where we're fighting for that championship and fighting for that title.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, we'll see how it all ends up working out. It'll be really weird to see, again, Mitch sitting out just because of the support that he has on the team and just the sense of energy that he brings.
Yeah, but I don't think that we're going to see a shortage of Prison Mitch in the crowd, though. I think it's still going to be there. I think there's still going to be a lot of support for Mitch. I think it's going to be the same as Chris Tehan when everybody shouts, "We want Tehan."
Right.
I think it's going to be, "We want Lightfoot," even though he's a redshirt.
Well, I actually wonder if there's a certain rule where if a redshirt can play a certain amount of games or not. Because in football, you can play up to 4 games before you redshirt. So I'm not sure the rule in basketball, actually, if he'll be able to play in any games if we need him, or I'm sure no postseason if we don't get banned. But I don't know. I don't know if the red shirt is necessarily the best thing just in terms of what he brought to the table last year. But again, you can always take it off if you need, if injuries or something's not working out and you just need him in. So.
And it's like what we say at Kansas, and Bill Self we trust. So
that is very true.
If it's what Bill Self thinks is good, then we're on board.
Absolutely, and it seems like Mitch thinks it's a good thing as well, just because he can be a leader this year and next year. So.
And he took it with a lot of grace and a lot of just humility, and I really liked that. I read some of his tweets and Instagram posts, and seemed he was, not entirely too thrilled about it, but he was accepting and grateful for the opportunity to still be on the team.
I
and
completely
everything,
agree.
so.
All right, well, we are going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we are going to discuss the big four of sports and if soccer should be considered in that. We'll see you when we get back.
In America, littering is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. In the U.S. alone, 250 million pieces of trash are littered each year, costing $11.5 billion in cleanup. Of that number, 40% of the trash comes from motorists on highways. We are slowly destroying our natural resources by littering so much as a society. Next time you see trash on the ground, do your part and throw it away.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
All right, welcome back to TakeASide. My name's Morena, and I'm here with Max. And right now we're going to be discussing the big four sports in the United States, typically regarded as baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, and whether or not soccer should be considered a part of that. So, Max, what do you think?
I actually think soccer should be a part of that. Based off of just, obviously, worldwide, soccer is the most popular sport, but
Right.
in the United States, it has grown 123%, which I didn't even know was possible for it to go above 100. So I think just based off of just the way that soccer is rising and it's getting more popular, it should really be considered in that category of the big four. And when I say big four, I don't necessarily mean that we need to just like remove one and add
Right.
one. But I think it's unfair to soccer, a sport that's growing in popularity and continuing. The MLS is getting more teams continually, and they're growing in the market there. And so I just believe that if you're going to have a big four, soccer needs to be in that discussion.
Yeah, because I mean, the people that say that it needs to stay a big four as opposed to maybe, I don't know, becoming like a big five, say that hockey is going to be what
Right.
kind of boots soccer out of there. And if you look at the MLS compared to the NHL, there are 24 Major League Soccer teams and currently 31 NHL teams. And certainly when you're having a discussion like this, the amount of markets certainly matters, and the reason the NHL is bigger than soccer, just purely in the sense that there are more teams and there are more markets and more cities and ways in which fans can get involved. But if you take away the Canadian teams and you focus on just the American teams, it's actually 24 and 24. There are only 24 American hockey teams. But I still think that there is a market in the United States for Canadian hockey teams, especially the Maple Leafs. I feel like those jerseys are everywhere. And I don't know, media portrayal does a lot to shape perception, public perception, which is a problem for soccer because for decades, U.S. soccer fans have known the big four sports to be, what we just talked about.
Exactly.
And if the media is having a discussion about, anything sports related, they're going to typically only focus on those sports, and soccer doesn't really become a part of the narrative because I don't know if it's because the NHL and all those teams are so much older. MLS only came into existence in 1993, I think
Right.
it was. But I don't know. It's definitely an interesting discussion, and I'm curious to know like whether how it's going to progress in the future and stuff
Right.
like that.
It'll be really interesting to see because the way soccer is, the MLS is going, is it just continues to grow teams.
Expand, yeah.
And just keep expanding. And I mean, New York only has like one soccer team, and in every other sport, New York has
A million.
yeah, exactly. They have two, sometimes three sport teams, and so it's just like once New York gets a better market, or LA. Even like Minnesota, I think, is one of the most recent ones that just got a team.
Yeah.
And their attendance, they were 6th on the list in attendance. So just with the MLS growing, I think it's just only going to get more popular as a sport, and it would be almost unfair to not even put it in the conversation where I'm not going to compare hockey and soccer, but I feel like just eventually we get to the point where soccer is just going to have a bigger audience than hockey. And so it's not necessarily fair to have the soccer be put, kind of on the back
Right.
burner and have the other sports at the forefront.
Interesting. Yeah, I disagree with you there, just because I think when you look at football, basketball, baseball, and hockey, the argument against soccer is that it's boring, regardless of what I think. That's a common thing that people say, and people even say that baseball is boring a lot, but then with baseball, you have the strategy, and you have those bits of action that do happen, which I guess is comparable to soccer, but I don't know. And if you look at then the Copa and then the World Cup and everything, soccer, dominates the world as the most popular sport. It's just we're kind of in a unique
Right.
market, because when you're looking at just the United States or just North America, there are a lot of sports that are most popular here by far, or almost exclusively only popular here, like American football.
Football is a big
Exactly.
one. Exactly. And so I'm just excited to see how soccer can grow. And once it starts making its way into the conversation, or if it comes down to, making it a Big Five, or
Right.
not calling it the Big Four in general, because soccer definitely needs to be recognized. And I was a denier for a really long time, just because I don't find soccer necessarily the most interesting. But
Right.
as it's grown, I've become more of a fan of it. And I'm talking MLS. I ripped on the MLS a lot because I'm like, it's nothing like the European
Right.
leagues or whatever. But it's really getting better, and it's becoming an ordeal, and it's becoming an event that people want to go to.
Right.
When you have all the attendance and
they do have a lot of, I know I'm from Phoenix, and we have a soccer team called the Phoenix Rising, which I guess is I don't know how the minor leagues work in MLS or anything like that, but I guess it's what would be called a farm team in baseball. And I've never been to a game, but I know there are a lot of people that I'm around that are into it, and they're into the soccer aspect of it, and that's not even a Major League Soccer team. And here in Kansas City, Sporting KC is a huge thing. So you really do see, like you said, the rise of the MLS. They continue to expand, they continue to add more teams, and I think in the near future they're going to be up there with, the 30 teams that are in most other sports.
I definitely think that's going to be a thing. And the interesting to me with soccer and hockey, if you're going to debate the two, is soccer brings in a lot more people.
Right.
The top team for attendance is Atlanta United, FC, and they average 52,000 per game,
Wow.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
I think the average, if you consider all the different stadiums, it's probably around 19,000. Which is just a lot, and again, that's going to grow as it's continued to grow for the last 10 years. It's going to grow and keep moving up, and a hockey arena can only fit so many people.
Right.
Where I think we'll eventually get to the point where there's more people watching MLS soccer, than there would be hockey. So I don't necessarily think that it'd be fair to remove soccer from the equation at all.
Right, I agree. And if you look at, I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see where it goes, because when you consider the fact that Major League Soccer was only established in 1993 and how quickly it has grown to contain even 24 teams, baseball was still adding teams in the late 90s and things like that. So I don't know, it'll definitely be really interesting to see where it goes, and if the public will be more willing to accept soccer as one of the big sports and stuff like that.
Jacob, what do you think? Do you think soccer will surpass hockey? Do you think hockey will just continue to be in that Big Four conversation, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that hockey is definitely considered the number 4 sport right now, but I think soccer's only growing, and I would not be surprised if within the next 5 to 10 years it surpasses hockey as that Big Four sport. I know that the MLS is trying to promote pretty heavily and trying to get the word out there and get more fans, and so I think that the way that the popularity of soccer around the world, I wouldn't be surprised to see that come to the United States.
I agree. I completely agree with that, and I think hockey, in a sense, I think with the way, the St. Louis, we were near it, so we got to see kind of the effect on that, and it has a great effect on people, but I don't think it'll be anywhere near the level that soccer will be.
Yeah, and I guess only time will tell. We'll have to see, and it'll be really interesting to see where it all goes and how it all projects from here.
All right, Jacob, you want to send us home?
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to take a side on sided.co and post some debates of your own. For Max McElroy, Emma House, Marina Saver, Josh McQuaid, Athena Schnur, and Sam Reeder, I'm Jacob Polachek. See you next week.